Welcome to Bloomberg Power Players. I'm Jason Kelly. A remarkable event happened recently in New York where some of the most influential voices from the business of sports came together here at Bloomberg World Headquarters. On the roster, all-stars, owners, commissioners, Hall of Famers, athletic directors, and investors, all talking about the waves of disruption hitting the world of sports and the massive opportunities that continue to emerge in this multi-trillion-dollar global industry. Today, we'll hear about a new and unprecedented era of college sports, one where some players are multi-millionaire free agents. Also, the fast-changing business models of leagues from the NFL to the NHL and the impact of institutional capital pouring into leagues and teams. We'll start now with the labor fight that could derail the next season of the WNBA.
Now we're on the subject of business, and you are, one of the maybe 5 most important people in these WNBA, CBA negotiations, and maybe one of the 2 most important people. Map out to us what the players are asking for in this proposal and in these negotiations.
When the players voted to opt out of this 2020 CBA, they said really pretty clearly what was on their minds, what their priorities were. And it's one of the top priorities, what we say the main thing is the main thing, is a salary system that is tied to the business so that these players are paid their value. Right now, we're in a system that, if you look at it, it's not tied to the business. And so it's designed to undervalue them. As the business grows, they start to fall behind. And we've got to right that ship. And we've got a moment right now to do that. This is a sustainable model that, because the players opted out of the 2014 CBA, to fix the business model, to get that on the track for the 2020 CBA, it's why we are here in 2025 fighting to make sure that this business really loves them back the way they have loved it, the way they have poured into it. We see it across in other men's sports. We can do that. We can do that in women's sports. And when we do that, the women are going to win, the players are going to win, the teams are going to win, the league is going to win. Seems like a no-brainer to me.
A couple weeks before All-Star Weekend, the league announced those 3 expansion teams, I believe it's in 2028, 2029, and 2030, at a total of $750 million in expansion fees. But
say that number again.
$750 million in expansion fees. I was told that their first counter proposal came shortly after that, and there were a bunch of player comments about it. Satu Sabali had the most to say, or maybe the most powerful quote, which was that it was a slap in the face. So what was your feeling reading what the league sent you?
Satu Sabali, first of all, is our co-chair of the CBA committee. She's pretty dialed in, and she's pretty passionate about the work. What was my feeling reading the proposal?
Sure.
That we had some work to do. That perhaps the league and the teams didn't fully hear the players when we opted out and we had our first bargaining session. And so there were going to have to be more conversations to ensure that they did fully hear what the players said and what they meant. I'm clear. I work for them. I understand the mission. I understand the directive. And so we're just going to have to sit down and have more of those conversations. However hard they are, we'll just continue to do it, period.
So when you all opted out, it was October 2024, I believe. Now you're less than 60 days away. And for those of you who don't know, there's an October 31st, which is a somewhat poetic date for Halloween. Yes. October 31st deadline. What happens after that?
Well, on November 1, we either have reached a deal and we're announcing it, or we have an expired CBA, or we have an expired CBA and both sides have agreed to an extension.
Kathy said that in Indianapolis, that the last CBA negotiations, there was an extension if you all were close to a deal. Right now, it doesn't really sound like, based on what the players have said, based on commentary, nowhere close.
Okay.
I'll let you finish. You were going on about what happens after that, and you stopped at work.
Well, yeah. Well, I love the question about what happens on October 31st or what happens on November 1. Like, I'm going on October 31st. I'm going to wake up on, like the rest of you all, on November 1. But you know, everybody seems to go from 0 to 100 with work stoppage, and there's going to be a strike, and there's going to be a lockout. Okay, stop, people. No, just bring it down a little bit. That's actually not the way it happens. There's a process for all of this, right? Those aren't the automatics. And when you heard me say, answer your question, yep. I didn't even use those words, right? Sure. Yeah. So you don't get to work stoppage until, you know, the union has held a vote across all of its members authorizing a strike. Like, these things happen. There are steps that happen. And on the league side of the table, I don't know what their process is. Sure. Their board of governors gets together, like decides whatever, and there's a lockout. I guess. I don't know. But on November 1, I'm going to wake up and, you know, either we're announcing to the world the CBA has expired, and we're like, whatever, or we have an agreement. We pulled some all-nighters. I don't know.
Sylvia, what advice do you give to players as somebody who's been a part of 2 of these? And this feels like, I mean, all of these are big, but this is like the biggest one yet because of the business booming.
Mm-hmm. Understand your worth. This is our job. We go out there and do what we love, but we also want to be compensated. So understand your worth and fight for what you think is right.
So your peers recently elected you VP of the National Basketball Players Association.
What an honor.
What is sort of, as you look at union work, what are your priorities for players? Are there things you think need to change or that you'd like to see improved?
You know, you want to be able to take care of all the players. My job as VP is not just to take care of, you know, the LeBron James and Steph Currys of the world. Is to be able to take care of those guys who are on 2-way contracts, who are, you know, mid-level players as well. So my job consists of helping everybody, and not only on the financial side of getting paid, but also healthcare, retired players. You know, how do we take care of our retired players with their health insurance and getting them the care that's needed, and to take care of their families as well, everyone. So it's a demanding job, but it's something that I'm tremendously honored that my peers chose me for the job, and to be part of those conversations every day, and to inspire change and to actually make change in our league it's a humbling experience.
You mentioned Adam Silver. You came in almost exactly when he did, roughly. And it's been a lot of change in his tenure. You've got the in-season tournament.
Very progressive.
Yeah. You like that?
Very progressive commissioner. Yeah. I think that what's so special about Adam is that he's continuously finding ways to keep the game entertaining and to move with the game. You know, while the game is changing, we're not staying stagnant. I think that for any league right now, sports-wise, we are continuing to be the pioneers of what's next. And I think that's a testament to Adam and the NBA doing such a fantastic job continuing to move the game forward instead of keeping it stagnant.
Up next, the radically changing business of college sports.
But this is a business arrangement now with them. I absolutely think this is the right thing to be doing for these student athletes. I'm not going to tell you how many checks I've signed and how much they've totaled up to this point, but we are trying to be competitive in this space.
This is Bloomberg Power Players. I'm Jason Kelly. When you blend a flood of new money, rising player power, conference chaos, the Supreme Court, and billion-dollar compensation payouts, what do you get? A college sports world turned completely upside down. At the recent Power Players event in New York, 3 of the country's top athletic directors broke down what's changed, what's coming, and how they're trying to keep up.
We have jobs that we operate almost like a political campaign, churning, campaigning, dinners, events, but we don't have an election day. We have game day, and there's a scoreboard, but as far as what we do in pouring into young people, in building buildings, in the NIL chase, and the revenue share, and the television world, there really is not a finish line because there's always something next. So that's how we're approaching it. And at Ohio State, we still have an upside in many ways on the business front, so we're trying to capitalize on all those things as it relates to winning that national championship.
So you guys are literally signing checks for revenue sharing agreements. Martin, how much have you paid out so far?
Wow, she goes in for the hard ones, Jen. It's a new day. July 1st started the new era where you can share revenue with student athletes. At UCLA, we started August 1st, and as of August 1st, for the month of August, we shared $4.8 million.
Wow.
Out of our $20.5 million that's allotted. So a lot of checks were being signed in August and more to come, but it's exciting. Our student athletes deserve that. UCLA, we've always been a proponent of that. And so, just how you manage that, how you make sure that we've been preparing for this for a while with the infrastructure needed to get all the student athletes information. We use PayPal and the Big Ten to make those payments and do those out. But it's a big undertaking just to be able to do that and kind of flip the switch and turn it on.
Wow. Nina, how much do you think these agreements are going to have a role in retention? Might we see fewer people going in the transfer portal?
Yeah, that's the hope. And for these agreements, they're structured. Every institution can decide how to structure them. And so, and then even for us, between sports, they're structured a little bit differently. We are looking to protect the university, for these agreements, also to do what's in the best interest of the student athletes. But this is a business arrangement now with them. And so, we've got plenty of lawyers involved in writing agreements, again, to go back to protecting the university. But I absolutely think this is the right thing to be doing for these student athletes. I'm not going to tell you how many checks I've signed and how much they've totaled up to this point, but we are trying to be competitive in this space.
So let me share some numbers. Between June and August, the amount of money distributed has been $80 million. That's almost $1 million a day and about 100 deals a day. What do you think of this, Russ?
Look, I think it's awesome opportunities for our athletes. What do we say about college? You go there, receive an education, prepare yourself for the next level, whatever that is. Maybe you can go pro, in your sport. So I think it's an awesome opportunity to basically have these athletes have the opportunities that other students have always had. But in our world, we restricted it. You can't be in a video game. You can't use YouTube channel. You can't monetize social media. You can't. And now it's like, let's go full throttle. And so we're seeing these big numbers, and some of it may be shocking, but in a lot of ways, it's a catch-up phase in some ways because our athletes have been restricted for so long. So I think all of us that are sitting here, I think as we try to be competitive in the new world, again, how do we provide opportunities for third-party NIL? We're going to have the rev share cap from the university. That's going to be standard. But what does the third-party roadmap look like? That's probably the next sort of arms race in all of this. And again, it's all about what can the athlete be provided in this moment in time. And so we're all pushing towards that new era.
So with all this revenue sharing, a lot going to football, basketball, that leaves other sports maybe not with as much money. So let's talk about Olympic sports. And we're already starting to see schools cut teams. Diving at Virginia, swimming and diving at Cal Poly. What is the risk to the United States? Are we going to have fewer medals after this big shakeup?
The financial model has changed. The realities have changed. And we're extremely excited to be hosting LA 28 and the Olympics in 28 and having them on campus in Westwood. But there is a concern after LA 28, what programs around the country are going to do with their Olympic sports. What we're talking about more is we need to really study, in my opinion, what other countries do as far as how they fund Olympic sports and take those learnings from other countries and apply it to what we do here in the United States. But there is a concern after LA 28, what does that mean? Is there going to be a cliff with Olympic sports? I don't see that obviously at UCLA, but I do worry about, as a whole, our Olympic movement if we don't figure out a better way to fund Olympic sports, because that's the issue. The issue is the funding model for Olympic sports, and I think that's got to adjust.
So let's talk about the funding model. We keep hearing the idea of private equity. Is it coming for college sports? How would this even work? Nina?
Yes, the financial model in college athletics is stressed. We are exploring all kinds of revenue models, and that certainly includes private equity. In the traditional sense, I'm not convinced that it would work, but we're talking to a lot of folks to kind of figure out, are there hybrid models, are there unique ways that we could do something to infuse capital, cash into our athletic departments and into our universities. I mean, I think there are a lot of revenue opportunities on campus as well, and so how do we kind of create that synergy with campus to continue to build revenue? We are heavily reliant on philanthropy, but if we could have been raising an extra $20.5 million a year, we would have been. And so I don't think straight philanthropy is the answer. And so, like I said, we are exploring everything, and I think private equity is on the table for sure.
Coming up, the new money that's pushing team valuations to record highs. How soon are we going to see a $20 billion team?
I think that's going to happen sooner than people expect.
This is Bloomberg Power Players. I'm Jason Kelly. At the recent Power Players event in New York, the owners of some of the most iconic American teams talked about the record-breaking dollars flooding into pro sports. For the NFL, the NBA, and the NHL, institutional investors are bringing big change and more opportunity.
Obviously the NFL was so diligent in the process of how private equity came into the sport and who was selected to come in and their reasons for coming in, and we couldn't have a better partner in Ares. I'm not just saying that because Mike's sitting here, but the whole team from Ares has been strategic partners. Long-term, they've got a long-term view on things, and they're a lot of fun to be with. So, it's kind of the best of all worlds.
So why do it? Why go in? What's so great about the NFL?
Football is obviously the most watched sport. Huge scarcity value, ever increasing media rights value. The business model of the NFL is probably one of the most durable in all of sports. And so as we think about just investing across the entire sports ecosystem, the NFL kind of checks every box, right? I mean, most other leagues that we've invested in, there's some risk that you have to box, relegation or lack of, national media rights, but the NFL really sits at the top of the top. The Dolphins were our first. I don't know if it'll be our only, but in NFL, the Dolphins are particularly unique as well, given the multitude of assets, stadium, F1, tennis, all the things that surround it. So we thought that it was a really good place to start.
One thing that does strike me, Tom, is this idea that, you guys did your deal, the Bills did their deal with Arctos. There have been a couple other minority stake sales, including one reported by Bloomberg yesterday, with the Koch family coming into the New York Giants. Tom, are you surprised there hasn't been more?
No, I think the NFL, ownership of these teams are being very deliberate, very patient in their selection, and given the valuation of the deal that you announced yesterday, Mike's already got a great deal with us. I think some of the owners
reportedly a $10 billion valuation.
I love that. I think the fact that some of the owners are waiting, I think they're expecting values to continue to rise, and I think they're right.
What do you think about valuations? I mean, having done the underwriting here and done all this diligence, where are valuations right now? Where are they going?
Look, when the first investment came into the league at a $5.5 billion valuation, I think people were shocked. The median value in the NFL now is about $7.1 billion. And with every successive investment, you're seeing those values go up. Some of that is the presence of institutional equity. So if you just look at sports team valuations in general, you'll see an inflection. NBA saw it, NHL saw it when institutional capital comes in, because you're dealing with asset scarcity. And when you start to open up new channels for investment, valuations will naturally go up. So I think you're beginning to see that scarcity value thesis play out. And then the media rights, continue to go up. And so sports franchises have compounded at 10 to 15% per year for the last 15 years. And then they get these periodic inflections whenever you up tier the media rights. But I think they'll continue to go up.
And Tom, do you agree? Like, how fast will they go up? I mean, how soon are we going to see a $20 billion team? I mean, I know it's hard to project, but
I think that's going to happen sooner than people expect. Look, I think I look at it maybe more simplistically. I just think that it's fundamentally supply and demand. You've got a lot of demand for these assets. They don't go for sale. There's a scarcity supply of them. As people who can afford to purchase these teams get more wealthy, the valuation's going to go up, the scarcity's there. And I think for institutional investors, that's part of, I'm not speaking for Mike or Aries, but I think part of the calculus has to be the health of the business model. I mean, the NFL is the most relevant cultural phenomenon in the United States, as evidenced by viewership and everything else. And that's going to continue. So the valuation should continue to go up.
Monumental is the only American pro sports entity that has taken on sovereign wealth. The Qatar Investment Authority bought about a 5% stake in 2023, valuing your company at over $4 billion. Can you just walk us through the thought process behind taking them on as an investor?
I paid $85 million for the Capitals 26 years ago. I paid it all in cash. And the leagues have done something really smart. They have debt limits. They protect us from ourselves.
Just like a salary cap.
And as these businesses started to get better understood, and they look like software service businesses, 80% of my revenue is contracted. Think about that, right? It's just like we look like Salesforce.com or Oracle. We do a big media deal, it's for 10 years. We do a naming rights deal, it's for 10 years. There's built-in escalators, just like a software company charges per seat more and more every year. It's a really beautiful business model in that way. And so I kind of looked at this and said, private equity is coming in now. And so when private equity gets in and they're getting more and more aggressive, they want an exit, they want out. Now a sovereign wealth fund, when I met the people from Qatar, they say New York, Washington, D.C., LA, professional sports, 100 years old, your building, your real estate is blocks. You can see the White House from my office, you can see the Capitol. We want safe harbor. We don't want an exit. We want to take our money and give it to you. You'll be the safeguarder. It's their
So it's patient capital.
Very patient capital and a lot of capital. I mean, we know that some of the funds that are running around in sports, you know, it's $3 billion, $5 billion. Sovereign wealth funds have trillions of dollars, right? And they're looking for, and the floodgates really should open. It's the smart play because they're very patient. The league rules have it. They don't come to board meetings. They don't come to games. They can't. They're not on the board. You know, we did something good in getting the pension funds and the sovereign wealth funds in, and it's the right thing for the leagues.
And it's also a recognition of the strength of what we are. I mean, we're media companies, and I believe, and I'm probably biased, there's no more important or compelling content, no matter what the platform or the form of distribution is, than live sports.
That's it for now, but that's just part of the great Bloomberg Power Players event in New York. You can see all of the conversations at Bloomberg.com and on the Bloomberg Terminal. I'm Jason Kelly, and this is Bloomberg.